What's going on YouTube? Vince here from Team Gins. I know it's been quite some time, but I'm here today to profile my Zombiesworn deck, modified pretty much for the September 2012 ban list. The deck is still very, very fun to play. It has a lot of really cool combos, but I switched a lot of things up in here, and to be honest, the limiting of Chaos Sorcerer to 1 really hurt this deck. I used to go into level 6s pretty much every game, but now I can't do that anymore, which is just, I'll deal, because there are plenty of other cool combos with the deck, but still, 1 Chaos Sorcerer really sucks, because I loved having 2. Okay, so starting off the deck, without further ado, first off is your main boss monster of the deck, BLS. You have to run them, Chaos Tech staple, no other questions asked. 1 Plague Spreader Zombie. 1 Mizuki. Mizuki is fantastic in this deck. I used to think he clogged the deck because he's an Earth, but to be honest, most of the crazy combos that this deck does comes right out of Mizuki. 3 Zombie Master. I think I see a lot of decks only running 2, but to be honest, I think you really have to run 3, especially in a deck like this, which is focusing on making level 4 exceeds. Next up, R2 Spirit Reaper. One of my favorite cards to open up with. People still don't expect to see Spirit Reaper, expect to run into it. They'll expect it to be a Raikou or something, or a Goblin Zombie, but Spirit Reaper is one of my favorite cards in the deck. It's ridiculous. 2 Goblin Zombie. A lot of people run 3, but to be honest, I don't like 3. I think that there's not enough targets to run 3 in a Zombiesworn deck. Next up, that was it for the zombie monster, so now onto the Chaos lineup. 1 Chaos Sorcerer. As I said, it really does slow down the deck, but what are you going to do, you know? What are you going to do? They needed to hit Chaos Tech somehow, especially with Necrogarden up to 3 now, which is pretty ridiculous. It's pretty stupid, too. I thought it was actually perfect at 2. Next up is 2 Doom Caliber Knight. I have loved Doom Caliber Knight for years, but to be honest, now I'm loving him more than ever. I realize that almost every game I open up with him in this deck, and I'm almost always, it puts your opponent in such a great, with how the hell am I going to get over this kind of state, you know? It negates all, if you open up with this, your opponent basically has nothing that they can answer it with, and they're going to have to really take a heavy hit the next turn. So I really love Doom Caliber Knight in this deck. If you'll realize, I took out my Effect Veilers and I sided them out, actually. I was running 2 Effect Veilers before. But to be honest, A, I would always end up milling them. B, I would just end up keeping them in my hand, waiting for them for so long, and just not doing anything with it. And C, it's not as good anymore without Insectors running around, you know. Most of the best decks don't even have real monster effects or run skill drain or something along that line. So I sided out my Effect Village. I still love it. I still think it's an awesome card, but what can you do, guys? What can you do? Card Trooper, bumped him down to 1. I was drawing him way too much. I still like his effect to mill. I still like his effect to draw cards. But to be honest, I was drawing him way too much. And not to mention, more than anything, he was just dead. 2 Necrogardener, I get it. He's a 3. I'm not going to run 3. Honestly, I think it's a little bit of an overkill. I don't think that it's necessary to run a 3. I think 2 is just the perfect number. 1 Cyber Dragon. This, if you have ever seen any of my older deck profiles of this deck, I used to always run a Cyber Dragon. I haven't for the last couple of months, probably since the last September ban list, but you know, now that I am again, I'm really liking him, you know. I still love going second with him, and special summoning him, and then normal summoning another monster. People still don't really expect that, especially not since people don't really side out Chimera Tech anymore, so, you know, Cyber Dragon's still very viable. Gores, I don't need to say anything about Gores. Oh, and also, about Cyber Dragon, I also really like having him in the deck, too, go into Celestia with another Lightsworn, and special summon Cyber Dragon, and then go into Adrius or Tiras, which is always fun. Finally, for the Chaos Monsters, I have double Trigodia. I used to be only running 3, but then I realized over time that since this deck runs like 30 monsters, It's just the hands that you get in this deck are ridiculously big, and Tragodia gets a lot of attack really quickly, so I really like having Tragodia at 2 now. Next up for the Lightsworn monsters. 1 Judgment Dragon, I only really like 1. 2 Wolf. I really do like having the Wolf in the deck, it's just an extra beater. 2 Raikos, I think that's perfect. 2 Lilas, gets rid of all the back row. Celestia, I still like having Celestia in the deck. 1 Aaron, Aaron puts in a lot of work with Zenmaines and Spirit Reapers and Marshmallons. Jane, gets over Thunder Kings. And finally, Lumina. I only run 1 Lumina. People tell me I should run 2. I only really like it in 1. Especially in a hybrid build. And now finally up for the spells. I think for the most part it's pretty similar. We have 1 Charge of the Light Brigade, Staple, 2 Soul Recharge. I've tried out 3, but I only really like it at 2. Just because there's so many other things in here besides Lightsworns. Allure of Darkness, works fantastic. 2 Book of Lives, which is like my favorite card. 1 Foolish Burial, I still like the 1 Foolish Burial. I still like placing that last Lightsworn in the graveyard, or special summoning a wolf for free, or putting a zombie in the graveyard for Book of Life. We know whatever it is, it always has uses. And finally, Monster Reborn and Dark Hole. I'm not running Book of Moon in here anymore, just because I don't like to set things in the back row in this deck. Not to mention I only have 1 thing that I would really ever set, which is Book of Moon, so people know exactly what I'm going to have as soon as I set it, so, unless I bluff them. But, I don't really like doing that. I like having the spell cards that I do. Alright guys, but that's the deck list. If you want me to go over the extra deck or the side deck sometime, just let me know. I do have my Gusto deck just about done. I just need about 1 or 2 more cards. I'm actually really loving that deck too. This format, it's Gustos with like dark monsters, so it's a Dark Samorg build, so it's really, really, really fun. I will profile that probably either today or tomorrow. So for now, guys, take it easy.